I still remember the smell of chai on my grandmother's stove the morning I told her I wanted to leave our village. The steam rose in the early light, dancing between us like the words I couldn't find. Her weathered hands paused over the pot. "Girls from our family don't go to college in the city, Priya," she said softly. "They marry and raise children. This is our way." That conversation happened 8 years ago in our small village in Kerala, where generations of women had followed the same path. My mother had married at 19. My older sister at 18. I was approaching 17 and already fielding questions about potential matches. But something inside me burned brighter than tradition. My name is Priya. I'm 25 now, working as a journalist in Mumbai, 1,600 kilometers from the coconut groves and rice paddies where I grew up. When people ask me how a village girl became the first female college graduate in her family, I often laugh and say, pure stubbornness. The truth runs deeper. In my village, education for girls typically ended after 10th standard. Books were considered a distraction from learning to cook, clean, and manage a household. My father worked as a driver for a wealthy family in the nearest town, bringing home about 15,000 rupees a month, roughly $180. My mother sold homemade pickles at the local market. We weren't poor by village standards, but education beyond the basics was a luxury we couldn't afford. I fell in love with stories through old newspapers my father brought home from his employer's house. I'd spread them on our floor, devouring articles about places I'd never seen and people whose lives seemed magical compared to mine. When I found journalism articles written by women, I'd cut them out and hide them under my mattress like treasures. "What will you do with all these papers?" my mother once asked, finding my collection. "I want to write stories like these," I told her. "I want my name on a newspaper." She shook her head, not unkindly. "Dreams are nice, Priya. But they don't cook rice." My chance came unexpectedly. My math teacher, Ms. Lakshmi, called me to her desk after class one day during my final year of school. "You write very well," she said, holding up an essay I'd written. "Have you considered applying for the state scholarship for rural students?" I hadn't. Nobody had ever mentioned such a thing existed. The scholarship covered tuition and some living expenses for students from villages to attend universities in urban centers. The application required essays, recommendation letters, and my parents' approval. The last part seemed impossible. For 2 weeks, I gathered courage. I prepared arguments. I practiced speeches. When I finally approached my parents, sitting them down after dinner, my father's immediate "no" wasn't surprising. "Who will pay for your clothes? Your books? Your food?" he asked. "And who will marry a girl who leaves her family to live alone in Mumbai?" My mother stayed quiet, eyes on her hands. That night, I cried into my pillow. The next morning, Ms. Lakshmi found me at school. "Your father came to see me," she said. My stomach dropped. He asked how much the scholarship would really cover, and what you would need beyond that. 3 days later, my father called me to sit with him on our small porch. "If you go," he said slowly, "you must promise 2 things. Study hard enough to make this sacrifice worthwhile. And remember where you come from." I nodded, unable to speak through my tears. "Your mother and I will find a way to send you 2,000 rupees each month," he continued. "It's not much, but..." I hugged him so hard he couldn't finish his sentence. Mumbai hit me like a wall of noise, smell, and motion. The train station teemed with more people than lived in my entire village. I clutched my single suitcase, overwhelmed by the cacophony of announcements, vendors, and honking vehicles outside. My accommodation was a women's hostel near the college, a building with peeling yellow paint and narrow corridors. I shared a room with 3 other girls, one from Delhi, one from Kolkata, and one from a village in Maharashtra. The room barely fit our 4 narrow beds and a shared desk. "You'll get used to the city," my roommate Ananya from Delhi said, watching me jump at every car horn during our first week. "It takes time." I didn't believe her. The classes overwhelmed me. My English wasn't as good as my city-educated classmates. I wrote my first assignment 3 times before submitting it, and still received a poor grade. My professor's comments highlighted my provincial perspective and unrefined analysis. I called home once a week from a pay phone in the hostel lobby. During those first months, I considered quitting many times. I don't belong here, I told my mother during one call, trying to keep my voice steady. Then make yourself belong, she replied simply. The breaking point came 6 months into my program. A guest lecturer, a famous journalist who'd covered wars and interviewed prime ministers, visited our class. After his talk, he asked if anyone had questions. Several hands shot up. I hesitated, then raised mine. Yes, the girl in the back, he pointed to me. Sir, I began, my voice shaking, your stories about rural farmer protests were powerful. But as someone who comes from a farming village, I noticed you quoted officials and urban experts, but barely any actual farmers. How do we give voice to people who aren't usually heard in our reporting? The room fell silent. The lecturer stared at me, then smiled. That, he said, is the most important question asked today. What's your name? Priya, sir. Priya, journalism needs people who understand the stories they're telling from the inside. Don't lose that perspective. After class, 3 students approached me. I'm from a small town too, one whispered. I've been pretending to be from Bangalore because I was embarrassed. That day changed everything. I started an informal study group for students from rural backgrounds. We met weekly in the college canteen, helping each other with assignments and language skills. I stopped trying to hide my accent. I began writing stories about my village for class assignments. My breakthrough came during my 3rd year. A national magazine ran a student competition for investigative reporting. I spent my semester break traveling back to Kerala, documenting how water scarcity was affecting farming families. I interviewed 37 people, including my own relatives. The piece won 2nd place nationally. The prize was 25,000 rupees $300 and a summer internship at the magazine's Mumbai office. When I called home with the news, my father didn't speak for several seconds. Papa? I asked, worried the connection had dropped. I'm having the newspaper shop print 50 copies of the magazine when it comes out, he finally said. Everyone in the village should see what you've done. Today, I work for a digital news platform focused on social justice issues. My beat covers rural development, women's rights, and environmental concerns. Last year, my series on girls' education in remote areas won a press award. The money is still modest. Junior journalists make about 35,000 rupees $420 monthly in Mumbai, but I send 5,000 rupees home each month. Last year, I helped my sister enroll in a teaching program. Life isn't perfect. The city still exhausts me sometimes. Rent consumes half my salary for a tiny apartment I share with 2 other working women. Dating is complicated when potential partners discover I won't abandon my career or move back to a village. But when I interview a farmer fighting for water rights, or a girl dreaming of education beyond her village school, I understand why I'm here. Last month, I returned home for my cousin's wedding. As relatives gathered, my grandmother pulled me aside. Show me your press card again, she requested, putting on her glasses to examine it closely. Your name is really on this. Yes, Amama. She handed it back, patting my hand. When you were small, you used to lie in the courtyard and look at the stars for hours. I thought you were lazy. Now I understand you were dreaming. I smiled. I still look at the stars sometimes. Good, she nodded. A person should never stop looking up. If you're reading this and feeling caught between worlds, between tradition and ambition, between where you're from and where you want to go, know you're not alone. The path isn't straight. You'll question yourself many times. You'll miss home in unexpected moments. But your unique perspective is precisely what the world needs. Your voice matters precisely because it sounds different. So look up at your own stars. What story are they telling you to write?